You check your phone. Someone's words from 3 days ago still sting. You replay the conversation. Again, your chest tightens. Your mind won't let it go. That comment controls you more than you want to admit. This is what it means to be mentally touchable. One criticism and your confidence shatters. One setback and your motivation dies. One person's opinion and you question everything you've built. You're not living your life. You're reacting to it. And that reaction is killing your peace. The Stoics discovered something most people never learn. You can become mentally untouchable, not by building thicker skin or pretending you don't care. By understanding something so fundamental that once you see it, external events lose their power over you completely. Marcus Aurelius ruled an empire while plague ravaged his people, while enemies attacked his borders, while his own son plotted against him. Yet he maintained inner peace. How? He wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He wasn't born with this strength. He built it, and so can you. Today, I'll share 8 ruthless lessons from Stoic philosophy that make you mentally untouchable, not comfortable lessons, not easy truths. These are the insights that strip away everything keeping you vulnerable to external control. Lesson 5 is the one that changed everything for me, and it's the one most people fight the hardest. By the end, you'll know how to build a fortress inside yourself that nothing outside can penetrate. If you're tired of being controlled by things beyond your control, subscribe. Let's build this together. Let's begin. Lesson number 1. Life owes you nothing. You've been sold a lie, that if you work hard enough, do the right things, treat people well, the universe will somehow balance the scales in your favor. It won't. There's no cosmic accounting system. No guarantee that your effort will be rewarded, your kindness reciprocated, or your sacrifices acknowledged. The universe doesn't care about your plans, your intentions, or your sense of what's fair. This lesson is ruthless because it destroys the victim mentality most of us live in. We've been taught to expect fairness, that life should treat us proportionally to how we behave. When it doesn't, we feel betrayed, angry, resentful. We spend years arguing with reality, demanding it be different, insisting we deserved better. That argument is the source of most of our suffering. My friend worked at the same company for 12 years. Consistently excellent performance reviews, trained most of the people who eventually became her managers. When the senior position opened, everyone assumed it was hers. It went to someone hired from outside, someone connected to the CEO's family. No amount of merit, loyalty, or competence mattered against that connection. She could have spent the next decade bitter about the unfairness, replaying the injustice, poisoning herself with resentment. Instead, she applied this lesson. Life didn't owe her that promotion. The company didn't owe her recognition. She'd operated under a false assumption that excellence guaranteed reward. Once she stopped expecting fairness, she stopped suffering over its absence. She redirected her energy into finding a company that would value what she offered. 6 months later, she had a better position elsewhere. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it." He understood this deeply. He ruled Rome during plague, war, and constant betrayal. If anyone had grounds to demand fairness from life, it was him. Yet he wrote these words not as complaint, but as liberation. He saw that demanding fairness from an indifferent universe was like demanding the rain stop falling. The universe doesn't owe you sunshine just because you have plans. Marcus redirected his energy from arguing with reality to accepting it completely, then working within it. When you stop insisting life should be fair, you stop suffering over its inevitable unfairness. This isn't resignation, it's freedom. You reclaim the massive amount of mental energy you've been wasting on resentment and channel it into action. The question stops being, "Why did this happen to me?" and becomes, "What's my response?" When something unfair happens, catch yourself thinking, "This shouldn't have happened," or "I don't deserve this." Stop arguing with what is. Ask instead, "Given this reality, what's my next move?" Stop demanding, start acting. Life owes you nothing, which means everything you build yourself. And that's actually empowering. Lesson number 2. No one is coming to save you. You've been waiting for the right opportunity to appear, waiting for someone to recognize your potential, waiting for circumstances to align before you make your move, waiting for permission, validation, or the perfect moment. That wait is costing you years of your life, because while you're waiting for external rescue, time is passing and nothing is changing. This lesson is ruthless because it kills the rescue fantasy most people carry. Deep down, we believe someone will eventually notice our struggle and help. Our boss will finally see our value. Our partner will change without us having to set boundaries. The economy will improve before we have to make hard decisions. The problem will resolve itself if we just wait a bit longer. This fantasy keeps you passive, powerless, and perpetually disappointed. I watched my brother live this way for 8 years. He hated his job but stayed because he kept hoping management would change, the culture would improve, or someone would promote him out of his misery. He'd complain every weekend about how unfulfilling the work was, how undervalued he felt, but he never applied elsewhere. He was waiting for recognition, for change, for someone to rescue him from a situation only he could leave. By year 7, his health was declining from stress. His relationships suffered because he brought his resentment home every night. Finally, after a health scare forced perspective, he stopped waiting. He updated his resume, networked aggressively, and within 3 months had offers from 2 companies. The rescue he'd been waiting for could only come from himself. Epictetus taught, "No one can hurt you without your permission." But the deeper truth he understood was this: no one can save you without your action. He'd been born a slave, physically powerless in Roman society, yet he became one of history's most influential philosophers because he refused to wait for external circumstances to grant him freedom. He claimed the one freedom no one could take: his own mind, his own choices, his own agency. He wrote that waiting for others to change your situation is slavery. Taking responsibility for changing it yourself is freedom. You are the only rescue coming. Your situation won't improve because someone finally notices. It improves when you decide it will and take action accordingly. Stop waiting for permission to change jobs, end relationships, start projects, or make decisions. The authority you're waiting for doesn't exist. When you catch yourself thinking someone should help, someone should notice, something should change, stop. Replace it with, "I am responsible. What action can I take today?" Stop waiting. Start moving. You are the help you've been hoping for. No one is coming, which means the power was always yours. If you've stopped waiting for someone to rescue you and started rescuing yourself, drop "I took action" below. Your story of taking responsibility could inspire someone still stuck in the waiting pattern. Let's move to the next one. Lesson number 3. Your opinions about events hurt you more than events themselves. The traffic jam didn't ruin your morning. Your judgment that traffic shouldn't exist ruined your morning. The criticism didn't wound you. Your belief that you should be immune to criticism wounded you. The rejection didn't devastate you. Your story about what rejection means about your worth devastated you. The event happened. Your suffering came from the opinion you added to it. This lesson is ruthless because it means most of your pain is self-inflicted, not the initial event that's often beyond your control. But the suffering that follows, that's yours. You're creating it through the meanings you assign, the stories you tell, the judgments you layer onto neutral facts, and if you're creating it, you could stop. My neighbor lost his job during company restructuring. 2 colleagues were let go the same day. One spent 6 months in depression, convinced the layoff meant he was worthless, that his career was over, that he'd never recover. The other acknowledged the difficulty, updated his resume that week, and treated it as unwanted but manageable change. Same event, wildly different suffering. The difference wasn't the layoff, it was their opinion about what the layoff meant. The first added, "This is catastrophic. I'm a failure. Everything is ruined." The second added, "This is challenging, but I've handled challenges before." The event was identical. The suffering was not. Epictetus taught, "People are not disturbed by things, but by the views they take of them." This wasn't abstract philosophy for him. He'd been a slave who was crippled when his master broke his leg. He had every reason to be bitter about circumstances he didn't choose. Instead, he recognized something profound. The broken leg was fact. The suffering beyond physical pain was opinion. He could add, "This is unjust, I'm cursed, my life is destroyed," or he could add, "This happened, and I still control my mind." He chose the latter. From that choice came his freedom. The Stoics weren't denying that bad things happen. They were pointing out that we make bad things worse by adding layers of judgment, catastrophizing, and self-created meaning. The event is one thing, your interpretation is another, and your interpretation is where your power lives. When something unwanted happens, you have a choice. You can add opinions that increase suffering. This is terrible, unfair, catastrophic. Or you can work with bare facts. This happened, it's unpleasant, what's my response? Notice your opinions. When something goes wrong, separate what happened from what you're telling yourself it means. The event is just the event. Your suffering is the story you're adding. Change the story. Not to toxic positivity, to simple reality. What actually happened, stripped of judgment. Start there. Events are neutral until you judge them. Your judgment creates your experience, and the next lesson will free you from wasting energy on fears that never materialize. Lesson number 4. Most of what you fear will never happen. You lie awake imagining worst-case scenarios. The presentation going wrong, the relationship ending, the diagnosis coming back positive, the financial collapse. You rehearse these disasters in vivid detail, feeling the anxiety as if they're already real. But here's the truth most people never confront. The vast majority of what you worry about never materializes. You're suffering through events that exist only in your imagination. You're trading your actual present moment for a fictional future that will likely never arrive. This lesson is ruthless because it reveals how much of your life you're wasting. Not on real problems, on imagined ones. Every hour spent worrying about what might happen is an hour stolen from what is happening. And when you finally realize that 90% of your fears never came true, you'll see how much peace you surrendered for nothing. A colleague spent 6 months in anxiety after her company announced restructuring. Every day, she imagined being laid off, how she'd tell her family, how long her savings would last, whether she'd find another job at her age. She couldn't sleep, couldn't focus. Her performance actually declined because she was so consumed by fear of losing her job. The restructuring happened. Her department wasn't touched. Not a single person on her team was let go. 6 months of suffering over something that never happened. 6 months she'll never get back, sacrificed to a disaster that existed only in her mind. Seneca wrote, "We suffer more often in imagination than in reality." He understood that humans possess a dangerous capability. We can make ourselves miserable over events that haven't happened and likely never will. He called this premeditatio malorum when done wisely, imagining difficulties to prepare for them rationally. But he distinguished between preparation and torment. Preparing for a challenge by thinking through responses is wisdom. Rehearsing catastrophes without planning action is self-torture. Seneca lived under Emperor Nero, knowing his favor could vanish at any moment. He didn't waste energy fearing every possible way Nero might turn on him. He prepared his mind for difficulty if it came, then lived fully in each present moment. When Nero eventually did order his death, Seneca faced it with calm because he'd prepared philosophically, not paralyzed himself with chronic worry. The Stoics knew the difference between productive concern and destructive anxiety. One leads to action, the other leads to paralysis. When you notice yourself catastrophizing, stop. Ask, is this fear based on current evidence, or am I imagining scenarios? If it's real and actionable, plan. If it's imaginary, release it. Your present moment is too valuable to sacrifice to fictional futures. If these ruthless lessons are shifting how you handle fear and external events, subscribe for more Stoic wisdom on building mental resilience. And if this is helping you reclaim peace you've been giving away, like it so others can discover these truths too. And the next lesson will show you how to actually embrace what you cannot change. Lesson number 5. You must learn to love what you can't change. This sounds impossible. How do you love traffic when you're late? How do you love aging when you miss your younger self? How do you love losses you never wanted? But here's what the Stoics understood. Complaining about unchangeable reality is like standing in the rain arguing that it shouldn't be wet. The rain doesn't care. Your argument doesn't stop it, but your resistance to it, that's creating your suffering. When you stop fighting what you can't change, something remarkable happens. You reclaim the massive amount of energy you were spending on resistance and redirect it toward what you can actually control. This lesson is ruthless because it eliminates complaining as an option. Most people spend years resenting realities they're powerless to change. Their age, their past, their genetics, the economy, other people's choices. That resentment feels justified, but it's poison you're drinking hoping reality will change. It won't. The question isn't whether these things should have happened. They did happen. The only question that matters is, what now? My father-in-law was diagnosed with Parkinson's at 58. For the first year, he was bitter. Why him? Why now? He'd taken care of his health, done everything right. The unfairness consumed him. His relationship suffered because he couldn't talk about anything except his diagnosis. Then something shifted. He stopped asking why and started asking what now. He couldn't change having Parkinson's, but he could change his response to having it. He researched treatments, joined support groups, started exercising specifically for his condition. More than that, he stopped resenting the disease and started appreciating what it taught him, to slow down, to prioritize differently, to stop taking days for granted. He didn't pretend it was good. He learned to work with it instead of against it. The disease remained. His suffering over it ended. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "A blazing fire makes flame and brightness out of everything that is thrown into it." What he understood was that obstacles aren't just things to overcome. They're raw material. Everything that happens to you, wanted or unwanted, can be fuel if you learn to use it. This is amor fati, love of fate, not passive acceptance that things happen, active transformation of whatever happens into something useful. Marcus lived this daily, facing betrayals and losses while ruling Rome. He didn't pretend these were pleasant. He learned to extract value from difficulty itself. When you face something unchangeable, catch yourself complaining. Then ask, since I can't change this, how can I use it? What can this teach me? How can I grow stronger through it? Stop resisting. Start transforming. Not every difficulty becomes a blessing, but every difficulty becomes less painful when you stop fighting the unchangeable. And the next lesson will show you why remembering death is the key to finally living. Lesson number 6. Death is not your enemy. Forgetting to live is. You avoid thinking about death. You change the subject when it comes up. You live as if you have infinite time, putting off what matters while managing what doesn't. But here's what the Stoics knew. Remembering that you will die is what makes you finally start living. Not morbidly, not fearfully, but with clarity about what actually matters. When you truly internalize that your time is limited, trivial things lose their power over you. Petty arguments become pointless. Fear of judgment becomes irrelevant. The urgent need to finally do what you've been postponing becomes undeniable. This lesson is ruthless because it forces you to confront what you're avoiding, that your time here is finite and you're wasting large portions of it. You're spending irreplaceable days on resentments that don't matter, opinions that don't serve you, and waiting for a perfect moment that will never arrive. Death isn't someday. It's the deadline that's already been set, and you don't know when it arrives. A friend's father had a massive heart attack at 62. He survived barely. When he recovered enough to talk, he said something his son never forgot. "I just wasted 40 years. Not 40 years of work. He was proud of his career. 40 years of saying he'd travel with his wife later. 40 years of planning to reconnect with his brother after their falling out. 40 years of meaning to write the book he always talked about. He'd lived as if he had unlimited time. The heart attack showed him the truth. He didn't. He might have 6 months. He might have 20 years. But whatever time remained, he would no longer waste it on later. He traveled with his wife. He called his brother. He started writing. Not because the heart attack made these things suddenly matter. They always mattered. The heart attack just revealed that he'd been living as if death was theoretical. It wasn't. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You could leave life right now." Let that determine what you do and say and think. He wrote this not to be morbid, but to be free. He understood that remembering death clarifies priorities instantly. When you ask, "Would I do this if I only had a year left?" the answer reveals what actually matters versus what you've been doing out of habit, fear, or obligation. Marcus used memento mori, remember you will die, not as depression, but as liberation, as permission to stop wasting time on what doesn't matter and start living according to what does. When you catch yourself postponing what matters or obsessing over trivial concerns, ask, "If I had 6 months, would this matter?" Let the answer guide you. Death isn't the enemy. Wasting the life you have while waiting for more time, that's the enemy. If remembering you have limited time just clarified what actually matters in your life, subscribe for more Stoic wisdom on living with intention. And if this lesson made you want to stop postponing what matters, like it so others can stop wasting their finite days too. And the next lesson will free you from the exhausting need for everyone's approval. Lesson number 7. People's opinions of you are none of your business. You check how your message was received. You replay conversations, analyzing tone, wondering what they really thought. You adjust your behavior based on whether people approve. You lose sleep over criticism. You make decisions to avoid judgment. But here's the truth. What people think of you is happening inside their heads, shaped by their experiences, their insecurities, their mood that day, factors you'll never know and can't influence. You're trying to control something that was never yours to control, and that attempt is exhausting you. This lesson is ruthless because it destroys people-pleasing as a strategy. You've spent years trying to manage how others perceive you, believing that if you just say the right things, act the right way, you can control their opinion. You can't. The person who admires you today might resent you tomorrow for reasons that have nothing to do with you. The person who criticizes you might be projecting their own failures. Their opinion isn't about you. It's about them, and it's not your business. My sister spent 2 decades trying to earn our mother's approval. She chose her career based on what would impress. She stayed in a relationship longer than she should have because leaving would disappoint. She dressed, spoke, lived according to what she thought would finally make our mother proud. It never worked. Our mother's dissatisfaction wasn't about my sister, it was about our mother's own regrets and unfulfilled dreams. My sister finally realized she was trying to control something impossible. When she stopped performing for approval and started living for herself, something unexpected happened. The relationship didn't improve, but my sister's suffering over it ended. She'd spent 20 years exhausting herself trying to control our mother's internal state. When she accepted that was impossible, she was finally free. Epictetus taught, if you want to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid. What he meant was profound. Your growth requires doing things others won't understand. Your integrity sometimes requires choices others will criticize. If you need everyone's approval, you'll never do anything worth doing. Epictetus had been a slave. He understood powerlessness. But he also understood that while others could control his circumstances, they couldn't control his character unless he gave them that power. Your reputation is what others think. Your character is who you are. You control one. The other was never yours. When you catch yourself trying to manage someone's perception of you, stop. Ask, am I living according to my values or performing for approval? Redirect that energy from managing their opinion to building your character. Their thoughts about you are theirs to manage. Your integrity is yours to build. And the final lesson reveals why comfort is slowly destroying your potential. Lesson number 8. Comfort is the enemy of growth. You choose the easier path every time it's offered. The comfortable job over the challenging opportunity. The familiar routine over the uncertain adventure. The temperature-controlled environment over the cold morning run. You tell yourself you'll push harder later when you're ready, when conditions are better, but comfort is training you to avoid difficulty, to choose ease, to become someone who can't handle hardship when it inevitably arrives. And it will arrive. Life doesn't care that you've been avoiding discomfort. When challenge comes, you won't suddenly become capable of handling it. You become what you practice. This lesson is ruthless because it reveals that your comfort-seeking isn't rest. It's weakness building. Every time you choose comfort over challenge, you're making yourself more fragile. The Stoics understood this deeply. They practiced voluntary discomfort not because they enjoyed suffering, but because they knew that strength only comes from resistance. Muscles that are never challenged atrophy. The same is true for mental resilience, emotional stability, and character itself. My uncle ran a successful business for 30 years. As he grew wealthier, his life became increasingly comfortable. Climate-controlled office, reserved parking spot, assistants handling anything unpleasant. When the 2008 financial crisis hit, his business collapsed almost overnight. What shocked everyone wasn't the business failure, it was watching him fall apart. He couldn't handle adversity because he'd spent decades eliminating it from his life. Small setbacks destroyed him. Uncomfortable conversations paralyzed him. He'd become so accustomed to comfort that he'd lost the capacity to handle difficulty. He eventually rebuilt, but only after deliberately choosing discomfort, taking a job that humbled him, living in a smaller place, doing his own difficult tasks. Not because he had to, but because he needed to remember how to function under pressure. Seneca wrote, "Set aside a certain number of days to be content with the scantiest food, to wear coarse clothing, and to ask yourself, is this the condition I feared?" He practiced voluntary hardship regularly, sleeping on hard floors, fasting, enduring cold, not as punishment, but as training. He knew that if you only experience comfort, you become enslaved to it. The moment comfort is threatened, you panic. But if you regularly choose discomfort, you build resilience. You prove to yourself that you can handle difficulty. When real hardship arrives, you're not fragile, you're prepared. Do something uncomfortable daily. Take the cold shower, have the difficult conversation, skip the convenient option, not to suffer, to build strength. Comfort makes you weak. Voluntary discomfort makes you resilient. Choose which person you're becoming. These 8 ruthless lessons aren't comfortable. They strip away the stories you've been telling yourself, that life should be fair, that someone will save you, that your suffering comes from events rather than your interpretation of them, that you have unlimited time, that you need everyone's approval, that comfort will make you strong. But here's what happens when you internalize these truths. You become mentally untouchable. Not because nothing bad happens to you, but because when it does, you remain centered. Your peace doesn't depend on external conditions. Your strength comes from within. Marcus Aurelius faced plague, war, and betrayal while maintaining inner tranquility. How? He lived these lessons. He understood he couldn't control events, only his response to them. You don't need to master all 8 overnight. Pick the one that challenged you most. Practice it this month. Watch what happens when external events lose their power to disturb your inner state. If these lessons gave you tools for mental resilience, subscribe for more Stoic wisdom on becoming unshakable. And if this shifted how you see challenges, like it so others can discover these truths too. Life will keep testing you, but when you're mentally untouchable, the tests don't matter. You remain who you are regardless of what happens around you. Thank you for being here. I'll see you in the next one. Until then, stay stoic, stay untouchable.